Now, ladies and gentlemen, the next session will be led and moderated by our very own moderator, Mr. Aan Suryana. Now, give applause to Mr. Aan. Hi, Mr. Aan, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay, now I would like to introduce your profile for a bit so the audience can get to know you just a bit better. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Aan Suryana here is a lecturer in political science at the Faculty of Social Sciences, Universitas Islam Internasional Indonesia. And Mr. Aan is also a managing editor in Muslim Politics Review, and it is a peer-reviewed international journal published by Universitas Islam Internasional Indonesia. And Mr. Aan here is also a visiting fellow at ICS Yusof Ishak Institute, Singapore. Correct, Mr.? Okay. Before we begin the session, I would like to once again remind the audience that there will be a Q&A session if the time allow us at the end of the panel. And please everyone raise your hand and then state your name and your affiliation. Keep your questions straight and short. And also, one of the speakers right here will be joining us online because she is currently residing in the United States. Who are the speakers? It will be introduced by Mr. Aan after this. Okay, Mr. Aan, are you ready?
Are you ready?
Ready. Okay, everyone, give a round of applause once again to Mr. Aan, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, actually, round of applause should go to our speakers here. So I was asked by Dean of Faculty of Social Sciences, Philip Vermonte, to review 26 abstracts submitted for this conference, and I'm pleased to see in the booklets that 16 are going to be presented in this very big event jointly conducted by CSIS and Google. And also probably FOS, Faculty of Social Sciences, also contributed to this event as well. And we will be having 4 speakers in this panel. The first one is Nuurrianti Jalli from Oklahoma State University, who will be speaking through Zoom. Yuko Kasuya from Keio University. So please come to stage. Yeah, please. Andi, Ilmi, Utami, Irwan from University of Palangka, Raya. And my colleague, Afrimadona. So every presenter will be having 15 minutes to share your research, and then it will be followed with question and answer sessions. Without further ado, floor is yours for Keio. Okay, according to the program is okay. Nuurrianti Jalli first from Oklahoma State University.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, let me share my screen. Hold on, let me share my screen. Okay. Hi everybody, I apologize that I cannot be here because I was supposed to be here, but I was stuck in the States because of our bad weather. My name is Nuurrianti Jalli. I am from Oklahoma State University, assistant professor of strategic communications, and I am also a visiting fellow at ICS Singapore. So today I'm going to share with you my research in 2022, looking at Malaysian election, and at a time I was interested in looking at TikTok because TikTok was the it platform for the young ones in Malaysia. So this is basically today's agenda. I'm going to introduce you the social media landscape in Malaysia, and then we're going to take a look a little bit about hate speech and disinformation and propaganda tactics in Malaysia, and then TikTok as a new frontier in G15 in Malaysia, research and findings. I know the previous panel spoke a little bit about TikTok, and for Malaysia, the case was a little bit different because TikTok was widely popular during the last election due to the fact that state of social media in Malaysia. So in Malaysia, we have very high internet penetration, or close to 97 in 2023. And then we have close to 80% active social media users. And our number one platform, still Facebook, because a lot of old people like me on Facebook. And then we also have, a rising app, TikTok. At the time, TikTok came close, second, 19 million users. And then we have Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. And time spent using internet in Malaysia, close to 8.
I'm sorry, Nuurrianti, Jalli, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think that your presentation goes missing.
Missing?
Yep, we have not been, okay, yeah, goes back online. Thank you. Okay,
Okay.
you can continue, yeah.
It was on my side, so I didn't know what happened. Let's just get back to the time spent on internet in Malaysia. The time spent on internet is about 8 hours, and then social media is close to 3 hours. So this is basically the overview of social media landscape in Malaysia. And I want to also introduce the key terms used in this research. There's like a lot of these 3 words that I use in my paper if you go on the website. So one is propaganda. Propaganda, by definition, for this research is deliberate expressions of opinion or actions to influence other people through manipulations, psychological manipulations. And the second term is hate speech. Hate speech in this research is defined as any communication that discriminates, disparages a person, group on basis of characteristics such as race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, nationality, religion, and protected category. And then finally, of course, the key term that we want to focus on today is disinformation, intended creation and dissemination of false or deceptive information. So here, I want to give you, maybe not all of you are familiar with Malaysian politics and Malaysian election, but in Malaysia, we also have like a pretty much a similar issue with Indonesia, but a little bit different, right? So I'm just going to introduce this to you. There are 3 broad categories of election malpractices in Malaysia. Number 1 is manipulation of voting acts, where we often have issues of undian already passed away, so they legalized to vote because there's allegation of using people ID of people who passed away to go and vote, miscounted, misreported votes, and then the second one is manipulation of voting choice. This is what I want to focus on today because we have like issue with the election economy.
Okay.
So manipulation of institutions, we have electoral commission elimination, first past the post system, and we also have gerrymandering issue where studies have found that during the election period, people in power manipulate election boundaries. Okay, so that's why I want to. This research is exploratory in nature, okay, I can see myself. So this research is exploratory in nature, and I wanted to focus on TikTok, again, like I told you, because it was the first time that Malaysia passed a bill allowing 18-year-olds to vote in Malaysian election. And it also because it was at the peak of TikTok popularity, because Malaysia, downloaded the app, during COVID-19, and a lot of people using it to share information. So I was interested in looking at whether or not it's being used as a platform for political communication. And during the election in 2022, we expected over 5 million new voters. You have to understand that Malaysian population is only 33 million. And then it was post-election, we found out that at least 75.6% out of the eligible voters came to vote. And in Malaysia, these are the drivers of political disinformation. Number 1, we have state actors state actors. We're talking about people in power. We're talking about like government agencies. We're talking about like paid cyber troopers and also loyalists. This has been found in multiple studies, including by John Hopkins, kids from Monash, Malaysia, myself and my co-author, my collaborator, Idris, and then James Gomez in Asia Center. And then another driver is, of course, social media and technology, right, that allows people to share things without any gatekeeping. So this happens globally. And thirdly, we also have another driver of political disinformation is PR firms, we have public farming companies, we have political parties, affiliated media, and hardliners. And another three, of course, drivers of political disinformation in Malaysia is we also have issues with high distrust towards state media because the citizens and people feel that main media in Malaysia are still controlled by people in power. So the narrative on the mainstream media are still owned and controlled by the government, and they decide not to pay attention to that unless they are supported off the government. So they go elsewhere to find information. And another driver, of course, we have issue low of media information literacy. So people in the city center, they are more literate in terms of how to use internal media, but not so much for people that live outside of, in the rural, or much of rural areas. And then, of course, Malaysia is widely popular with what we call it identity politics. So another driver of political misinformation in Malaysia is deep-rooted political division amplified by religious differences. And in Malaysia, political disinformation is not new. Like I believe also like in Indonesia and many other parts of the world, it's just that we have new technology, right? Previously, political disinformation being shared on radio, TV, and now we have social media. And it becomes much more sophisticated along with the advancement of communication technology, and it will continue being used by political actors to influence public opinion and political behaviors. So in Malaysia, the patterns of political disinformation include sexual scandals, people accusing political leaders to engage in sexual activities, same-sex scandal, or with opposite sex. We also have religious issues, the issue of corruption and hate speech. And in Malaysia, we also the government tried to control this information through the use of fake news law, such as the News Law 2018 and Emergency Ordinance Essential Powers 2021 to control fake information, but it has been found to be what we call it used by people in power to silence critics. So this is basically the research questions that I have. This is exploratory in nature. We want to go there and see what's happening on TikTok, whether or not this information and hate speech specifically prevalent on TikTok through GE, what will be the primary disinformation hate speech narrative prevalent on TikTok through GE, and how did TikTok offer a platform for disinformation and hate speech in Malaysia during GE General Election 15, 2022. So this is the research method. So we went in. I was helped by my research assistants. So it was a little bit over 1 month because we just want to explore. And we started collecting data from November 1st until December 15, and Malaysian election was on November 19. And we used Brand24 to kind of like look at trending hashtags, look at relevant keywords that we can use to kind of like manually download data from TikTok. So there's a list of hashtags that we use related to what we call the General Election 15. So it includes acronyms of General Election in English in Malaysia, PRU, we have Raya 15. And then we also have GE15, General Election, and many others, as you can see here. And we have like multiple levels to this, and we decided to go with looking at propaganda So when we try to find out whether or not the content on TikTok of propaganda or not propaganda, so we develop a propaganda code book based on the Institute for Propaganda Analysis, and also a list of propaganda that is from a previous study, But I was specifically interested in Black propaganda because Black propaganda is, deliberate sharing of false information and misleading information to kind of like influence political behaviors during the election. And to identify this information, it's a little bit hard at a time because we cannot say something disinformation without proving it was disinformation. So we kind of like cross-check with what we call fact-check information from independent Malaysian non-state fact-checking groups such as Palangka, Check Malaysia, and Don't Check Malaysia. So this is basically the framework for research. We try to identify the hashtags, and then we scrap the information using the identify hashtag and keywords, and then we try to identify the propaganda. And after all this, stages, we ended up with 373 Black propaganda and hateful narrative. And then within that 373 Black propaganda, which is like intentional, what we call deliberate false information shared, including that, 89 clear disinformation, while others is more of like hate speech. And there are two key narratives that we found in the content that we analyzed, religious issues and also corruption. And while we observed that at the time, we also noticed that there was like a trending new hashtag during the election period. It's called 13 May and 13 May 1969. So what exactly is 13 May and 13 May 1969 in Malaysia and also Bangsa Melayu? It refers to the bloodiest racial clash in Malaysia that happened in 1969 between the Malays and the Chinese community. So at the time, there was a huge, racial kind of like narrative on TikTok at that time between the young Malay supporters versus the non-Malay supporters. But the Malay supporters were more dominant. So they were like called for for the Malays and Muslim Malays not to vote for non-Muslim, non-Malays politicians. Otherwise, they're going to go down to the street and they're going to start a 13 May 2.0. They want to do like the second round of racial clash in Malaysia. So that was
in progress.
So that was like very concerning for the government. So the government was like, at the time, they kind of like observed it for a bit, and then ended up calling TikTok to see the ministry to kind of like have TikTok explain to them why are such content kind of like flooded on TikTok. So here's what we found. All the different propaganda techniques that we found on TikTok. One of the most popular technique that we found was character assassination. A lot of time, TikTok users calling candidates names, calling them kafir. So for example, kafir is how do you say it in English? But you understand what I mean. So kafir is like for non-Muslim leaders, and they also call other people kafir if they found out that Malay celebrities supporting what we call it non-Muslim, non-Malay.
I'm sorry, Nuurrianti, you have got 5 more minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay, so this is an example of the TikTok screenshots that we found. This one so that you can see example of name calling, example of propaganda that we found. And then the second one, to answer the second research questions, whether primary disinformation and hate speech narrative, This is like what I said when it comes to ethno-religious narrative, one of the examples, right? But we also found another second dominant narrative, which is on corruption. So a lot of time, people recycle old issues. Because in Malaysia, one of the famous issues was 1MDB, involving money corruption. And then that issue, despite the fact that Jakarta, the previous prime minister, was not contested, but the issue was also still being played on TikTok. So there's two different narratives that we found on TikTok, but predominantly was on ethno-religious because at the time, 13 May and the Bangsa Melayu was trending on TikTok. And because of that, we also wanted to go and have conversation with Malaysian political content, on TikTok, content creator on TikTok, try to understand how exactly that TikTok allow, have open doors for that to happen. So they said it's pretty easy, including use of like spellings that are not detectable. You do not have to spell it, correctly. You have to be creative with your spelling if you want to write in the caption, or you can easily speak in your local dialect, right? So that can easily bypass and using the live section. So one of the interviewees said this: many divisive content in Malaysia and Chinese remain on TikTok even after 1 week of the election, because this person said that TikTok didn't do much about them. So that's why the Malaysian ministry at the time called TikTok to go and meet with them to explain what happened on the platform. So conclusion is pretty simple, right? What we call it, there's a lot of issue with TikTok at the time during Malaysian election. They feel that TikTok did not respond as fast in removing the content, and at the time there are also loopholes that content creators could use to kind of like create emotive content on TikTok. And as communication technology evolved, we were a little bit concerned about what kind of content that can be created and put across platform, including TikTok. So I just wanted to give you an example here of AI, singing on TikTok, and many other political leaders, Indonesia political leaders singing AI voice on TikTok. And strategies to secure election, I would say we have to be more, there's more effort to kind of have local experts to help oversee stuff on platform and have political actors and tech companies accountable when it comes to overseeing this information on the platform. And of course, increase funding and institutional support for independent fact-checking bodies. I hope my presentation was clear. If you have any question later on, just let me know.
Thank you. Let us give a round of applause to Nuurrianti Jalli. Thank you for your concise and coherent presentations. And now we are going to have a second presenter, Yuko Kasuya. And I now remember that I reviewed her article. I think this is written with other two colleagues, right? Your article?
Actually, other three colleagues.
Other
right?
three colleagues, yeah. On disinformation in the Philippines.
Right.
Floor is yours, 15 minutes.
Recording stopped.
Great, thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me for this wonderful, wonderful, well-organized conference. I really appreciate the CSIS staff for all the arrangements and also the chair who picked our paper. So, after Malaysia, we are moving on to the Philippines, and this is a paper I have been working on with my three colleagues, and my name is Yuko Kasuya. I'm a professor at Keio University in Tokyo, teaching political science. Before going into our paper, let me briefly introduce myself. I'm Japanese, but still, I study about Southeast Asia, including Indonesia. And recently, I have been interested in issues such as democratic backsliding, political polarization, and disinformation. I'm sharing the interest with most of you here in the audience. And another thing I would like to note before I proceed is about this research project funded by the Japanese government. The title of the project is Disinformation and Democracy in East and Southeast Asia. We have this acronym IDEA project. The project period just started last year, 2023, July. It will go on to 2029, March. So we have been studying elections in Taiwan. I just came back from Taipei and observing Taiwanese election and with regards to disinformation. And we are also studying, this project is also studying Indonesia's 2024 election. We have 15 collaborators in this project, including computer scientists, data scientists, economists, so forth. And we also have an Indonesian collaborator, Dr. Jalli who is also a SAIL member. And picture on your right-hand side is our project website, which was very short-lived. We launched this in December last year, and within 1 week time, we received cyber attack. So probably, this indicates that the nature of our project is attractive to some people who do not want us to study disinformation. Now, let me move on to the content of our paper, research paper. So, as everyone knows, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., or usually known as Bombo Marcos, or BBM, I will be just referring him as BBM throughout my presentation. So BBM won, right? Some people might say, why is this something puzzling to study about? I would say that you have one of the presidential candidates for 2024 Indonesian election, Prabowo. BBM and Prabowo have lots of things in common, or so many political contexts are very similar. And I kind of believe that was one of the reasons why our chair picked up our paper. So, BBM, as everyone knows, is the son of former dictator in the Philippines. So his father ruled the country, and President Marcos Sr. is known for being corrupt, known for collapsing Philippine economy, and human rights violations. So we wanted to study why BBM, as son of a dictator, became so popular to win a landslide election. There has been lots of explanations why BBM became so popular. And what we are focusing in this paper is the role of disinformation during the 2022 May election. And we are particularly focusing on disinformation about Marcos Sr., his father, the dictator. So in this paper, we have two research questions. One is, to what extent did voters believe disinformation about Marcos Sr.? I will talk more in concrete sense what kind of disinformation was so prevalent. Secondly, we wanted to know whether disinformation helped boost support for BBM, right? So just to give you a short answer before I go into the details of our analysis, according to our nationally representative survey result, about 25 to 40% voters believed, not only being exposed, but they believed actual concrete disinformation about Marcos Sr. And the second question, well, our answer was unfortunately, our research design could not disentangle whether there was a causal relationship between disinformation and support for BBM. So, well, I would like to talk about the implication of these results probably at the end of my talk. Hopefully, I hope I have enough time to talk about it. So, just to give you a background about the Philippine disinformation context, Philippines is known as the social media capital of the world. Indonesia may be very, how can I say, well, prevalent in terms of use of social media, but Filipinos win, I believe, according to the statistics. And this is a figure I prepared using the BDEM database, which include international comparison of the extent of domestic partisan disinformation. And this is expert coded. So according to the experts, this is how Philippines fare and also Indonesia looks like. The higher the value, more disinformation. US from 2010 to 2025 is going up. Okay, US is very famous for fake news. However, well, Indonesia is very famous for fake news. However, Philippines is more, right? So this is the context that we're talking about. And another brief note about the disinformation business. This is the Philippine version of how buzzers work. Politicians hire PR strategists. They pay for influencers, paid disseminators disseminate disinformation, and volunteer disseminators would propagate. So we have the term called troll, which is the equivalent of buzzers in Indonesia. Another important background context I would like to talk about is the length of the disinformation operation or information operation in general regarding the Marcoses. So Marcos Sr. himself provided disinformation, not digital, but so he himself wrote a book filled with fake news about himself. And Marcoses were kicked out from the country in 1986, but they were allowed to come back in 1991. Since then, they have been operating to rebrand the Marcos name, including the hiring of this Cambridge Analytica consultants. So we are moving towards 2022. This is the fake news database prepared by check.ph. I believe this is equivalent of check facta in Indonesia. The right-hand side figure shows the number of fake news they figured out. Leni Robredo, the opposition candidate, received the highest number. Second, BBM, the candidate himself, and Ferdinand Marcos was the third most talked about figure in the disinformation content. And breaking down the nature or types of disinformation, the most talked about disinformation about Marcos Sr. was about economy. The second one was about human rights. And third one was about so-called Marcos gold story, that Marcos had so much gold and so rich. So, well, the backgrounds are over. Now let me talk about our research design. So we conducted two studies in order to address two research questions I proposed. Study one is to study the extent of disinformation exposure and belief, and association between disinformation and BBM support. For this, we commissioned a nationally representative face-to-face survey to study this. We also ran online survey at the same time. This took place 2 weeks before the election in 2022. Study 2 studies direction of causality. So we found there is a strong association between the belief in Marcos Senior related disinformation and support for BBM. But we do not know which way the causal arrow goes. People may be believing in disinformation because they support BBM, or they support, or they received BBM, they received the disinformation, therefore they support BBM. So we wanted to know the direction, right? Study 1, we have 3 types of vignettes. One is about the economy, saying, typical story goes like this. So Marcos Senior's era in the Philippines was the golden age of the Philippines in terms of economic development, right? And we asked respondents whether they know this news or whether they believe it. And this is the second vignette. The human rights related fake news goes like this. The guy on your in the picture, right-hand side, former defense secretary during Marcos Senior period. He said that there was no human rights violation during Marcos era in the interview, in the discussion with BBM. So this is the second type of fake news we asked. The third type of disinformation is about Marcos gold. There are several variations, like Marcos had gold from the Japanese soldiers during World War II. There are lots of variations, but we asked, so this is one of the typical things, that Marcos had so much gold in his possession, and they lent it to more than 100 countries in the world in the 1940s. Oops. Since I'm, constrained with time, let me quickly go to the results. So this is the overview of disinformation exposure and belief. The blue bar is the degree of exposure. Yellow is degree of belief. This right-hand side, from your side, left-hand side panel is face-to-face survey, right-hand side panel is online survey results. So basically, what this figure tells us is that, this is more nationally representative, accurate result. But, so this one shows that about 25 to 40% of voters believe in this disinformation about Marcos Senior. And online respondents have higher degree. And so economy story, golden era of Philippine development is most believed. This one breaks down between BBM supporters and non-BBM supporters. The red bar is the BBM supporters. So just to give you a quick summary, the BBA supporters believe in, BBM supporters are more exposed, and they believe in the fake news more than non-BBM supporters. So we have a very strong correlation between belief in disinformation and support for BBM. This leads me to, this is a regression results, basically showing the same thing. And let me go to study 2, because my time is running out. So basically, we found a strong correlation between the support for BBM and belief in disinformation. The second study is an online survey experiment. we tried to figure out by running this experiment to figure out which way the causal arrow goes. We randomly assigned respondents in 3 groups: control group, no vignette; treatment group, disinformation vignette; and treatment group 2 received disinformation plus fact check vignette. I'm sorry, I might be running out of time, but yeah, 2 more minutes. Okay, so we asked respondents first, do you the feeling toward BBM, the vignettes, and then we asked a bunch of questions about the support for BBM and also belief in disinformation. Probably I would skip discussing the hypothesis due to lack of time. Please go to our paper if you are interested. And let me skip this. Let me skip these. These are the research design. So this is the disinformation vignette, and this is the treatment 2 group disinformation and fact check vignette. So we inserted, after fake news, we inserted fact check information or debunking information. So the stories we used are the same as the study 1. We used economy story, human rights story, and Marcos Gold story. Right, so this is the main results for study 2. Basically, what we found in this study was that receiving praises about Marcos Sr., the lies about Marcos Sr. actually decreased, not increased support for BBM. So this was opposite of what we expected, but that was what the data says. Also, the support for BBM declined if you compare the panel A's control group and disinformation group and fact check group. The disinformation groups and fact check groups support for, feeling towards Marcos Sr. and both intention for BBM, panel A and C, declines, right? So this was opposite of what we expected. However, I would like to point out one of the important findings in our study is that people may not change the vote intention or which candidate to support, yet people's misperception can be corrected by fact check information. That is what is shown in panel D. Right. So since I'm running out of time, this is just a breakdown of our main result for non-BBM supporters and BBM supporters. Basically, our results were driven by BBM supporters. Right. So these are the summaries, but maybe let me go to the discussion and findings. Just to wrap up, what we found was that in 2022 election, almost, half of Philippine voters, depending on the nature of disinformation, they were exposed, and quite a few of them believed in those disinformation. And I would say that rebranding of Marcos family over the decades probably culminated in this result. So it's not that disinformation is not just a 1 week thing. It takes years, decades to take effect. Another finding, so for question number 2, we wanted to know whether this information boosts boosted support for BBM, we could not really disentangle this relationship. And one implication, again, is that in the case of the Philippines, years of disinformation operation or information operation created an entrenched, bidirectional relationship between misperception by disinformation and BBM support. Or it could be just because our research design was bad. So probably I would like to, maybe we'll have some time to discuss some of the points I raised here, but I wanted to highlight one of the, let me highlight two issues. One is about the changing nature of democratic backsliding and also changing nature of disinformation operation or information operation. Probably you are observing something similar in the case of Indonesia. But during time of President Duterte, democratic backsliding was very harsh, ostensive, direct. So as disinformation during Duterte period. During the Marcos Jr. BBM presidency, the disinformation is softer, indirect, more narrative-based, hard to debunk, and they also use multiple channels, including big budget movies like what you see in these posters. So multifaceted as the theme of this conference, multifaceted way to provide this information. Let me conclude with just one more thing. I'm sorry, I'm a bit over time. But about the future avenue to study disinformation. In this project, we studied positive disinformation, so praising Marcos Sr. We didn't study negative type of disinformation, and it seems to me, with regards to election-related disinformation, studying negative disinformation will be probably very important. I'm saying this because actually I interviewed several people in Taipei last week with regards to disinformation. And one of the very insightful remarks I learned was that for disinformation operators, it's not about changing the support to other candidate. It's more about turnout. They want to reduce turnout of their opposite camp or boost the turnout. So in that mindset of disinformation operators, negative disinformation just around the time of political campaign probably is the most effective thing. And probably this is what scholars should be paying more attention. Right, so this concludes my presentation, and thank you so much for your attention.
Okay, thank you. Let us give a round of applause to Yuko. And after we listen to discussions on disinformation in the Philippines and in Malaysia, we have two more presenters to discuss disinformation in Indonesia. So we have got first Andi Ilmi, floor is yours, and then will be followed by Afrimadona. So remember, 15 minutes. Yeah?
Check. Okay, thank you, Pak Aan. And good morning. Oh, sorry, afternoon, audience. Let me introduce myself. I am Andi Ilmi Utami Irwan. Currently, I'm working in Palangka Raya University as the lecturer, and it's honor to be here to share my paper and my perspective about how the empathy as the strategies in election disinformations. I have to disclaimer first, I'm not fluent in speaking in English, so I want to ask the permission of Pak Aan as the moderator if I mix bahasa and English when I presenting my paper. Is it okay?
I think it is supposed to be fine, yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I want to share my perspective about how we see the election disinformations, about the fake news, this hoax in social media. I want to offer another perspective to see the empathy strategies, how the producer of fake news use our feels about anger, about our kind, to spreading this fake news or disinformation. So this is my paper talking about it. Okay, as we know, fake news has a significant influence in public opinions, and fake news is almost about the social topics, about the social issues, and especially in political and social context. Fake news tends to spread faster and more widely than the true news. People see the fake news as the bombastic news, so they want to reshare first, and this is make the disinformation spread widely. And as we see, it is the survey from Reuters, and for topics that the misleading information in for country, United States, United Kingdom, Slovakia, and Japan. Four topics is the most false news that people see in social media or another media. It's about, the most is politics, and then COVID-19, and climate change, and war in Ukraine. And today's maybe we see about the election against and war in Gaza. Okay. And as we see, maybe all of us familiar about the propaganda, the false news, but it's not the new happens in our election. As we see in history, the government used the propaganda to gain the power, so they spread the false news, propaganda, but not by the social media, but by the power of word of mouth, and then it's spreading to society. And the rise of social media make the misinformations spreading widely. So we have contacted with the misinformations. And this is another survey that its impact, why the misinformation impacts so widely, because the rise of social media. And it's how we take the news. Jadi bagaimana kita mengambil berita itu dari media sosial, bukan lagi dari sumber-sumber dari mainstream media. Kita lihat bahwa di Finlandia, Norwegia, Denmark, dan Swedia yang kita tahu pendidikannya lebih bagus, lebih tinggi, dia mengambil berita itu langsung dari website. Tetapi hal berbeda, difference dengan negara seperti Thailand, Filipina, Chili, Peru. Mereka mengambil beritanya most dari sosial media, same as Indonesia, maybe. I'm not found any research about it. And this is how the growth of social media, and we gain the news from Facebook, and then Facebook Messenger, Twitter, and almost 2 years the phenomena of TikTok. When I asking my students or another young people, when I asking, if you want to search information, what platform you use? And almost them say TikTok and YouTube, no Google, apalagi website dan lain sebagainya. Jadi seperti apa yang disampaikan dengan pemateri yang pertama tadi, bahwa TikTok menjadi fenomena yang sangat tinggi. Dan kemudian dari Mrs. Yuko juga mengatakan bahwa bagaimana fenomena TikTok ini digunakan dalam pemilu presiden di Filipina. Dan sama seperti dengan pemilu juga di negara lainnya seperti di Indonesia. Oke, ini dari Daily Social dan juga Mavindo yang mengatakan bahwa hoax information in Indonesia is most commonly found on Facebook. Dan walaupun sekarang mulai bergeser agak turun, kemudian dibarengi dengan media-media sosial lainnya. Dan ini sebanding dan sejalan dengan jumlah pengguna media sosial di Indonesia. Di tahun 2019 ini ini adalah survei dari Statista yang melihat bagaimana pertumbuhan penggunaan sosial media di Indonesia. Di tahun 2019 sekitar lebih dari 61 orang menggunakan media sosial. Jadi media sosial menjadi arena yang sangat strategis untuk menyebarkan informasi dan termasuk misinformation. Dan seperti yang dikatakan oleh Mbak Yunita Wahid, bahwa tidak ada angka yang pasti seberapa banyak informasi, misinformation yang spread di masyarakat. Tetapi ini sekitar beberapa topik yang menjadi the most topik yang beritanya salah di masyarakat. Dan seperti biasa, berita politik mendapatkan tempat atau spread misinformation paling besar. Dan fake news and social media campaigns almost railing on disinformation, dan it's more berbahaya karena ini akan undermine our public trust. Ini akan menurunkan public trust dari penyelenggara pemilu, Bawaslu, dan juga lembaga-lembaga lainnya, bahkan public trust juga turun terhadap pemilu itu sendiri. Dan pertanyaan dari paper saya, apakah ini penyebaran berita bohong itu, apakah the lack of our critical thinking, ataukah ada pandangan lain atau ada pertimbangan lain kenapa penyebaran berita bohong menjadi lebih besar? Kemudian perspektif yang ingin saya tawarkan adalah apakah empati bekerja dalam penyebaran berita bohong itu. Jadi bukan hanya karena kita kurang critical thinking, tetapi kita mempunyai sikap empati dan ini dimanfaatkan oleh orang-orang yang menyebarkan berita bohong tersebut. Dan bagaimana menggunakan strategi ini di dalam pemilu presiden di tahun 2019 kemarin. Dan bagaimana sosial media ini menjadi katalis untuk menyebarkan berita bohong ini dengan menggunakan atau menyentuh rasa marah kita, rasa simpati kita untuk masyarakat menyebarkan berita bohong tersebut. Studi kasus saya mengambil dari satu halaman Facebook yang digunakan pada pemilu 2019 dari akun sword.com di Facebook. Sword.com adalah satu fenomena, satu kanal berita yang muncul di sekitar tahun 2016 ketika pemilihan gubernur tahun 2017. Mereka menyebarkan berita dan sangat populer dan visitorsnya bahkan melebihi Tempo.com dan juga Kompas.com. Tetapi almost seluruh berita mereka dari media sosial Facebook. Oke, dan penelitian saya melihat bagaimana postingan mereka dalam menyebarkan informasi, baik disinformasi atau informasi yang true atau berita yang fakta. Saya mengambil postingan mereka dari 1 Maret 2019 sampai 18 April 2019. Ada sekitar 178 postingan yang mereka buat dan saya menyusunnya dalam beberapa topik, hanya 8 topik yang membicarakan the program of Joko Widodo dan juga Ma'ruf Amin. Ada 10 postingan yang memperlihatkan campaign aktivitas kampanye dari Joko Widodo dan Ma'ruf Amin. Dan 110 postingan yang menyerang attacking the another pair Prabowo dan Sandiaga Uno. Dan 32 postingan lainnya memuji dan berita positif tentang Joko Widodo dan Ma'ruf Amin. as you know, okay, it is fake news, dan it is how the evolution as well as the social media you make the disinformation spread widely, and then it will be impact on society, tactics to exploit emotions like fear, anger, and happiness, and echo chamber effect. When we talking about issue A, so the issue A will coming in our feeds. It's like in Twitter or Facebook. And then it will be threat to democracy because influence on public opinions and political polarization and undermines public trust and influence political opinions.
Sorry Andi, 5 more minutes ya. 5 more
Okay.
minutes.
This is AC. The post of seward.com memuji Jokowi dan juga menyerang Prabowo. Dari postingan-postingan tersebut, serangan terhadap Prabowo 110 postingan itu mendapatkan interaksi sekitar 194.541 dengan jumlah reshare sebanyak 38.478. Pujian kepada Joko Widodo yang walaupun berbeda, 68% postingan terhadap Prabowo, sementara postingan terhadap memuji Jokowi hanya 18%, tetapi memiliki interaksi yang hampir sama. Interaksinya sama. Dan bagaimana mereka menggunakan postingan-postingan mereka untuk mendapatkan reshares dan juga comments, like dan sebagainya. Satu foto ataupun postingan dari Jokowi biasanya memperlihatkan bahwa Jokowi adalah pemimpin yang baik, dibutuhkan oleh Indonesia, orangnya soleh, sangat muslim. Kemudian personal attacks terhadap Prabowo menyentuh agama, identitas lainnya, dan juga berita hoax. Dan almost 100% berita tentang atau postingan tentang Prabowo itu adalah misinformation. Jadi mereka menggunakan itu, menggunakan kemarahan audiens kepada Prabowo untuk berita tersebut disebarkan dengan sangat menyebar dengan luas. Kemudian mereka menggunakan persona yang baik dari Joko Widodo, persona yang soleh, dekat dengan Muslim terhadap Joko Widodo. Dan hanya 8 postingan yang memperlihatkan program kerja Joko Widodo. Ketika kita abai terhadap misinformation, akhirnya kita akan lebih banyak melihat background ataupun postingan-postingan terkait kandidat tentang hal menyangkut personal mereka. Karena yang ingin diperlihatkan atau ingin menyentuh adalah emosi kita, kemudian kemarahan kita, dan kemudian rasa kasihan kita. Tidak lagi berbicara terhadap program-program. Oke, ini tadi seperti yang saya sampaikan bahwa ketika program hanya berbicara 5%, dari hasil penelitian saya melihat bahwa hampir seluruh 178 postingan dari seword.com ini menggunakan atau memancing rasa emosional kita untuk bisa men-share apa yang mereka posting. Dan ini ditarik kepada bagaimana fake news itu bisa menyebar dengan sangat luas. Dengan menggunakan atau mix our feelings to touch our soul or feelings, so we want to reshare to community, our friends or our family. And what I see, the bias in the hoax news or fake news atau disinformation ini. Kita cenderung mencari informasi atau para audiens ketika saya memperhatikan sekitar 150.000 interaksi, tidak ada diskusi yang dinamis ketika person yang sama mengomentari Prabowo. Pada saat 178 postingan itu, dia memposting sekitar 30-50, dia akan hanya membenci terus. Sementara orang yang memuji Jokowi, di postingan yang sama dia akan memuji. Diskusinya hanya defense dan kemudian menyerang satu sama lain. Tidak ada pertumbuhan interaksi, diskusi yang lebih baik di halaman komentar mereka. Jadi misinformation semakin membuat bahwa kita cenderung tidak ada tak ada pertumbuhan diskusi yang lebih baik di bidang politik, tetapi kita hanya menguatkan pandangan kita karena diperkuat oleh berita yang ingin kita lihat. Kemudian yang ketiga bahwa misinformation ini membuat polarisasi semakin tajam, semakin luas. Karena ketika informasi disebarkan secara bombastis, emosi kita tersentuh, akhirnya kita akan cenderung membela mereka dan kemudian menyerang other candidates yang kita tidak dukung. Oke, bagaimana dengan the future of Indonesian elections? Satu dinamika menarik untuk kita lihat bahwa bagaimana mainstream media yang seharusnya menjadi pegangan kita untuk memberikan berita-berita yang sesungguhnya, yang real, tetapi pada nyatanya kemudian mereka mengikuti bagaimana media sosial berkembang. Clickbait, jadi media mainstream ini menggunakan berita dengan judul bombastis supaya kita klik, dan biasanya ini pengalaman empirik saja bahwa berita bombastis ini pada akhirnya berbeda, judul yang bombastis beda dengan isi beritanya, dan tidak kemungkinan bahkan ada 1-2 kejadian mainstream media bahkan menyebarkan berita yang salah karena ingin mendapatkan share yang tinggi, dan itu kembali pada nilai ekonominya. Dan harapannya bahwa kompetisi antara media mainstream dan media sosial ini sebenarnya tidak terjadi. Media mainstream bisa kembali kepada ruhnya untuk menyebarkan berita yang sesungguhnya, berita yang benar. Dan bagaimana pendidikan politik untuk hal-hal yang menyangkut empati ini bisa kita tekan lagi dengan banyak melatih mereka untuk melihat secara gagasannya dan lain sebagainya. Dan apa yang kita takutkan bahwa ketika hoax semakin menyerang, kita tidak lagi melihat pasangan ataupun kandidat, tetapi dari gagasannya ataupun program-programnya, tetapi yang kita ingin selalu lihat bagaimana kita relate dengan kandidat itu dari latar belakang identitinya, mulai dari agama, kemudian kesukuan, dan hal personal lainnya. Itu dari saya, terima kasih.
Let us give a round of applause ya. And now we've got last presenter, Pak Afrimadona. He is a lecturer at FOS and also executive director of Populi Center. Floor is yours, as usual, 15 minutes.
All right, good afternoon, everyone here. Thank you for the opportunity given to me for presenting this quite old and in progress research actually. This research might not directly related to the big topics that we are discussing today about disinformations and misinformations. But it is indirectly related to that because, polarization, as some of the authors, previously captured nicely, partly caused by misinformations spread out to voters. So I'm gonna talk a little bit more about the dimensions of polarizations based on survey experiments that we have done in Jakarta in a few years ago. All right. So when we talk about Indonesian politics, most scholars, especially in the last few years, often, characterize Indonesian politics as being polarized. But the problem is that we do not, measure, clearly what polarizations that we mean. So far, when we talk about, polarization in Indonesian politics, we are talking about cleavages based on, two political camps. Right, that we can trace back to Jakarta's election in 2017 and Indonesian elections in 2014 and 2019. But the question is that what is political polarization and how do we appropriately measure this political polarization in Indonesian context, and to what extent that political polarizations, occur based on our measure. So in general, I think previous research by Mas Okta has told nicely about political polarizations. Surely this is a topic that is worth studying, I think, because it affects the functioning of democracy. Yes, we know that positively, it increases political participation, simplifies political choices, and strengthens political party and consolidates, political groupings. But negatively, it leads to political gridlock, debates in parliaments or in DPR, for example, right? Sometimes, based on political partisan lines to some extent. Justifies undemocratic action by one group to another, especially occur at the mass level, and then it also extends political conflicts. In literature of American politics, for example, we know that political polarization has extended to many issues. Previously, people tend to be bipartisan in saying some foreign policy issues, for example, but now they have been different at saying these issues. And in general, Carthrens and Donahue, I think, a book published by Brookings Institutions, see that global trends in political polarization. So this is not a unique case in established democracies, but also occur in developing democracies as well. So how, so far, we measure polarization? Manifests of polarization. Who polarizes over what? Elites polarization, mass polarization. Most scholars, categorize this, and elite polarization, to a significant extent, has been greater than mass polarization, and in many cases, it drives, mass polarization. Over what? They polarize over ideological issues, political attitudes, policy options, policy positions as well. They are also, polarized, based on partisan line, sure. Partisan animosity, members of one party, for example, do not like so much, the others of, different aisle. And then effective polarizations, dislike, distrust, do not want to interact with those of another camps. In general, when we are talking about ideological polarization, this is what we commonly imagine when we are talking about political, ideological polarization. So assumes that you are able to position yourself along a line, along a continuum, liberal and conservative, and then you position themselves, based on parties, for example, or leaders, or whatever it is. And then we measure differences in their policy attitudes. The strength of this measure is that it is more precise, comparable across time, and we can track the degree of polarization. But the weaknesses are that it may not be applicable to most of voters. Only sophisticated voters, those who can understand, policy issues and can position themselves on the issues. And then more relevant to all established democracies with clear policy cleavages. The U.S. is one of the most noticed study about this. Indications is that on the upper panel, we see, it is not, it is a polarized, position, but lower panel, it is unpolarized one. We have studied this based on, our survey that we have done in Jakarta, 2019. And then we try to ask, some questions about some policy issues. And then we try to measure political attitudes, using several questions. For example, to what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? The country will be more prosperous if the rule of law is based on Islamic teachings, for example. This is, one of, the questions that try to, capture their Islamic political attitude, for example. And then we have several questions for this, and then we run exploratory factor analysis, and then generate multidimensional nature of political attitudes. And then we got 3 latent variables here: political secularism, political liberalism, and economic liberalism. And then this is the questions that we use, to tap all of these latent, measures. So if we try to, look at the distribution of, these political attitudes, across 2 opposing camps. At the time, the 2 opposing camps is Jokowi, Jokowi and Ahok at the times, because our respondents, we did survey on Jakarta voters. So at the time, Prabowo, aligned with Anies Baswedan, and then Jokowi aligned with Ahok. So we see 2 camps. And then we try to, describe the distributions of their political attitudes, based on these 2 camps. And we see that in most of, in 3 dimensions, they overlap actually. So we see that, particularly there is no significant difference, in general. But we see to some extent, that, the distributions to some extent a little bit differ, in terms of the mode. You see that, especially in, Islamic politics, in political Islam. And if we, run regressions and then try to see, the ideological position, we see here in general. So Ahok Jokowi voters, in terms of political secularism, they tend to be on the right side, much more secular, in their attitudes on these issues. And then while Anies Prabowo voters, tend to be more conservative in terms of political secularism issues. But on other issues, they tend to be overlapping. And on economic liberalisms, to some extent, they quite differ as well. Partly because at the time, economic issues is one of prevalent issues. Surely economic issues are always talked during the campaign, right? And then at the time, Prabowo, and Jokowi, try to put forward, the narrations, that are quite different from one another. Okay, this is multivariate testing. We see that, there is a difference in them. All right, but ideological polarization is quite problematic because not many voters are aware of these issues and then define clearly their ideological positions, and then they cannot sort themselves based on these positions. They understand, and because understanding policy issues is not, this is a typo, it's not an easy task for most voters. Only sophisticated voters, can understand these policy issues. Also, in Indonesian context, especially most parties and voters are pragmatic. They are pragmatic, rather than ideological. Most of the policy debates are not framed ideologically, but they are, framed, under, a populist narrative. So no clear signal to voters. And last one, it is possible the polarization is effective rather than ideological. So, so we see that, it is more likely, polarization is a little bit more effective, in the sense that it is based on, the figure that they voted before, and then how their emotional, emotional feelings they attach to the leaders they voted before, and then based on that, they position themselves on issues that we are asked them. So it is much more relevant to societies where parties are not ideological. Polarization starts when marginalized groups, coalesce, and mobilize themselves to achieve a political objective.
5 more minutes, Pak Afri.
All right. So this is 3 criteria to evaluate the degree of polarization. First, whether it fuses elites and masses in large opposing camps, each of which contain elites and mass bound by strong affection. Second one, whether the country is structured into binary visions that dominates political life. And the last one, whether polarization lasts beyond the specific polarizing event and so on. Okay, so I tried to test the first criteria using survey experiments. So the question is, do leaders polarize voters based on policy issues? And the expectation is that political polarization occurs when issue positioning is based on the leaders making the policy, and when one support policy belonging to her leader and rejects the policy made by leaders of different side of the aisle, and that indicates that political polarization occurs. So we expect that when voters know on the policy proposing leaders, they are more likely to support the policies of the leaders they previously voted. So I used data from a random sample of 600 adults drawn from Jakarta populations conducted in 2019. And then we weight the data based on the proportions of the characteristics of the populations. This is in general the similarity between samples and the population characteristics after weighting the data. And then this is we randomize our respondent into random and treatment groups. In the treatment groups, we give them with the names of the leaders that proposed the policy. So, for example, like this one. A treatment group is exposed to policy questions with clear reference to the leaders proposing the policy. So, for example, during Ahok's era, flood was managed by widening the river and concretizing the area along the river called normalisasi. During Anies Baswedan's era, flood has been managed by widening the river and planting trees along with the river called naturalisasi. These 2 programs, however, can entail fictions of people around the river, but naturalisasi during Ani's era requires more lands so that it risks more eviction if implemented. According to your opinion, which program is more appropriate for Jakarta nowadays? A, normalisasi during Ahok's era, B, naturalisasi during Anies Baswedan's era. So that's a treatment. But on the control group, we are just give respondents with the differences in the policies without saying or without referencing to the governors proposing the policy. And then we ask them about 8 policies for that. So, a standard in experimental, studies, we need to check covariate balance to make sure that there is no, some variable that might bias, our result. So we see that, we have quite, balance, in characteristic between control and treatment groups. Oops. All right, sorry. Okay, this is in general. Hopefully, you can see, even though it is a little bit, oh, sure. Okay. You can see that, see, for example, the first issues about flood management, for example. If you see in the control group, for example, no control group, you see that, for example, in Ahok's, among Ahok's voters, for example, in the control groups, and in the treatment groups, the respondents, have a little bit, similar positions. So they supported, Ahok's position. So it means that even though they do not know who, the leaders who proposed the policy, they choose, exactly the same policies, as the one in the treatment group when they know the policy, the governors proposing the policy. Interestingly, among honest voters, that if you see in the control group, when we do not say, we do not reference the policy position to Anies Baswedan's name, most of voters, tend to support our position, right? But when they hear the names Anies Baswedan, they tend to support Anies' positions, and this occurs to several policy issues that we are asking here. You see that you see some reverse bar chart here among honest voters. All right. So if we compare the policy position control and treatment group, most of honest voters tend to support the policies when they hear or know that Anies Baswedan is the governor who proposed the policies. That's the key ideas here. So, but we might wonder, sometimes, under what condition, does this, this result, bias based on, several variables. For example, it might be based on, it might be biased based on partisanship, emotional attachment, political knowledge, or religiosity. So we try to do what we call heterogeneous treatment effect. I'm simply, interacting this with these several variables. And then in general, we see that, in some, in most of the policies, you see that, most of these variables, amplify the effect of, name identification on the policy position. All right. So let me go to the discussion and conclusions. So what we can understand from this study is that when voters know the policy proposing leaders, they tend to sort themselves with the policy of the voted leaders. However, when they did not know the policy owner, they tend to evaluate policy rationally. Yet this is especially evident in honest voters. So leaders seems to be an important signal to policy attitude. So knowing the policy owner activates effective polarization. So that is supporting the policy position based on the likes and dislikes of the policy owner. And some of the factors like partisanship, emotional attachment to the leaders, and religiosity amplify the relationship between name identification and policy support. But political knowledge seems to undermine the relationship. So those who know the policy well or experience the policy implementation might not be affected by leadership identifications of the policy. So I think that's all the result of my research. So thank you, Pak.
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause to Pak Afri. And thank you for participants for still going with us. We already spent 1 hour and 25 minutes, and we have got 5 minutes left for our question and answer sessions. And we are inviting two people to direct questions to our presenters. And bear in mind that we still have another presenter on Zoom. Any questions? Please raise your hand. Okay, one. Okay. And probably one. Yeah. Please state your name. Yep. And your affiliation here. And please keep your question short.
My name is Sherzada. And I'm doing a Ph.D. in political science at UTI. My question is that how can we manage and control the use of AI and the misinformation, disinformation? Because we are using AI everywhere, especially in the politics, and now the era of the general election in Indonesia, as well as in Pakistan. So comparatively, how we can use and control AI not to manipulate the election process all over the world. Not only in Indonesia, but the rest of the world.
Okay, thank you. Suryana is a PhD student at UIII and former journalist with a Pakistan organization. And second questions?
Hi, my name is Rizal. I'm the master student of diplomacy in Universitas Paramadina. I have two questions to the two distinguished speakers. The first question to Ms. To Ms. Yuko. You just mentioned on your presentation that you say that the experience of how Bongbong Marcos elected to be the president of the Philippines, it looks like what happened recently in Indonesia. It's quite really similar to Prabowo Subianto. So would you please picturing what is the similars of the experience of Prabowo Subianto here in our election recently correlate to Bongbong Marcos? Because I did not get really clear about that in your presentation. And my second questions to the second panel speaker after Ms. Andi. In your presentation, you say that empathy tool in understanding the disinformations. But in your presentation, I did not even see what exactly empathy tool is because as far as I know that empathy is something that related to human nature on how they can see the difference between disinformation, malinformation, or even misinformation itself. Would you please picturing it in a reality or in a current presidential elections that we are now running in Indonesia? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Probably for the first questions, Nuurrianti Jalil, are you still with us? Or probably she has gone already, yeah? So for the first questions from Suryana, I think, okay, would you like to, Pak Afri and Nuurrianti Jalil, would you like to address the first questions? With regard to the use of artificial intelligence?
So right now, I'm a part of like a policy clinic for AI. So far for Southeast Asia, we do not have like a law per se to overlook like a disinformation, AI disinformation, like really focus on AI disinformation because our approach in Southeast Asia is more business-like. You know, right now, if you take a look at Singapore, if you take a look like in Indonesia, it's a more friendlier approach to AI. So I feel like that question is like overloaded and very generic, and this is very hard for me to answer because there's no like a clear solution for it. Because at least in the Southeast Asian region right now, we're still what we call it working on the policy for AI. But so far, the way that we approach AI is more of like a for governance in terms of like the development and infrastructure and business. In terms of looking at this information specifically, the policy, we do not have it just yet. So we're looking at West right now. We're looking at the weird country, Western educated, industrial educated industry in the West to kind of like see how they approach this thing. So for that questions, I do not have like specific answer, but my point here is that Southeast Asia is more friendlier business approach. This information specifically law-wise, policy-wise, we're not there yet.
Okay, thank you. Pak Afri, would like to address? Okay. Okay. And how about Yuko for the second questions, yeah? And Andi, followed by Andi. Keep your answer short, yeah?
Right. Well, thank you so much for two questions. Well, quick comment on the AI. Well, AI can be either, both friend or foe, and it really depends on how we look at it. So an alternative approach would be to inoculate people in order to counter the malicious effect of AI. So that would be one way to think about AI. The second question, excellent question. Thank you so much for raising that. So the reasons I was saying why Prabowo as a presidential candidate and BBM are parallel was because, well, mainly because of the human rights record of Prabowo himself and human rights record of father of BBM. Well, at least in the case of BBM, I'm not really familiar with the Indonesian situation, so you please educate me later on. BBM and Marcos family in general very skillfully whitewashed the human rights violation record of his father's era, and the messages they conveyed was, oh, we are like a Kennedy family of the Philippines, and very positive, you know, friendly to everyone. And it seems to me that's the type of message that the Prabowo is trying to convey, given the cute cartoon posters and so forth. So probably you know better, but so that was what I meant. Thank you.
And last questions.
Thank you for the questions. I will answer it in Bahasa Indonesia again. How the empathy, my paper is title is Empathy Strategies. Jadi using the empathy as the strategies. For contoh empirik, mungkin di pemilu 2019 ketika itu ada kejadian balot kertas suara di Malaysia sana, kemudian dinarasikan oleh Seaword bahwa itu adalah hoax yang disebarkan oleh pendukung Prabowo saat itu. Dan kemudian semua orang marah dan itu mendapatkan jumlah reshares dan likes terbanyak dari postingan mereka. Padahal kemudian pada kenyataannya memang ada kejadian seperti itu. Kemudian untuk melihat pemilu saat ini, kejadian sangat empirik, saya mengambil dua kejadian yang comes to mind now. Satu yang pertama ketika setelah debat ada video yang sangat viral, video Prabowo ketika saat itu potongan video Prabowo yang waktu itu dinarasikan diserang oleh Anies Baswedan. Ketika orang akhirnya merasa kasihan dengan mimik muka Prabowo di potongan video tersebut, tidak ada yang sadar bahwa ketika lontaran kata-kata itu diucapkan oleh Anies Baswedan adalah mimik muka yang berbeda di saat kejadian debat itu yang pertama. Kemudian orang merasa kasihan, merasa marah, dan itu menggunakan empathy as the strategist. Dan yang kedua, yang berita viral di TikTok Gain, ketika ada tulisan siapa yang memilih Anies akan dibunuh, akan digebukin gitu. Ada kata-katanya dan kemudian diserahkan ke polisi. Berita itu sangat viral di kalangan pendukung Prabowo. Berita itu sangat viral menunjukkan kemarahan mereka dan bagaimana mereka sangat mendukung kepada kandidat yang mereka dukung. Kemudian di pendukung Anies Baswedan mengatakan bahwa hal itu tidak benar dan lain sebagainya, bahwa kenapa pendukung Prabowo sangat keras, sangat ini dan kasihan kepada Anies Baswedan. Dua-duanya menyebarkan berita yang sama dan kemudian lama akhirnya terlihat bahwa itu adalah potongan video yang salah. Tidak ada tulisan tersebut bahwa siapa yang memilih Anies akan dihabisi di tempat kemudian diserahkan kepada polisi. Bagaimana orang-orang menyebarkan hoax, misinformation untuk mengundang kemarahan dan kemudian mengundang simpati untuk kita reshare berkali-kali. Itu. Jadi hal yang paling menakutkan adalah bagaimana ketika berita-berita ini hanya untuk mengundang kemarahan kita supaya semakin disebar dan semakin tersebar dengan sangat meluas dan akhirnya kita lupa bagaimana melihat apa yang terjadi. Mungkin seperti dengan apa yang ditawarkan dari panelis ketika kita, bahwa ketika sama halnya dengan public policy, ketika kita sudah cenderung menyukai, kita tidak kritis lagi melihat. Ketika kita tidak menyukai siapa yang the owner atau the idea of the public policy, kita cenderung kritis melihat itu. Seperti itu, terima kasih.
Okay, thank you. Actually, this information is very complex issue and wide in scope, so I don't dare to conclude. I leave it to you how to conclude these sessions. And let us give again a round of applause to all the presenters. And our session has come to an end, and I will hand over these sessions to organizing committee. Yep.
Thank you very much, Mas Aan, and all of the speakers for a very insightful session. Give a round of applause once again, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to request all of the speakers and the moderator together in the center because we will take a quick group photos. Now, as our speakers and moderator are taking group photos, I would like to remind 3 things to the audience. First of all, if you want to access all of the papers that are being discussed today in this event, you can access it online. Just feel free to scan the barcode available in your booklet, and by scanning the barcode, you can access all of the paper online. And just in quick short, the committee will also display the barcode here in the screen, so feel free to also easily scan the barcode in the screen. I would like to thank you all of the speakers and moderator, and feel free to take a seat because we will proceed to the lunch break. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the barcode, so feel free to scan it to access all of the papers that are being discussed today. That's the first thing. The second thing to remind is there is a goodie bag available to all of the audience that fill the feedback form available also digitally. So I believe that just a quick short, there will be another barcode available on the TV screen that the audience can access, and feel free to scan it and fill the feedback form. There is a goodie bag available for 1 email only, so 1 person, 1 goodie bag to everyone that filled the feedback form, and to also follow the Instagram of CSIS and Safety Lab Internet. So the Instagram is at CSIS Indonesia and Safe iNet Lab. So fill the feedback form and follow those 2 Instagrams, and there is a goodie bag available for you. But beware that this goodie bag is limited, so make sure that you fill the feedback form and follow the Instagrams quickly so you can grab your goodie bag. And the third and last thing to remind before we have our lunch is, ladies and gentlemen, this is only the first day of the event. There will be a second day tomorrow with topics that are very much more interesting. So make sure that you attend the event tomorrow for the second and the last day. Okay, now we will proceed with our lunch break, and we will gather here to begin the second session at exactly 2 p.m. So thank you very much, everyone. Please feel free to take your lunch available in the pre-functional area. See you at 2 p.m.